Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my new friend, Mr. Nomad Numbers, from the website Nomad Numbers. Mr. Nomad Numbers and his wife, Mrs. Nomad Numbers, are world travelers who left their corporate jobs in 2018 to pursue their lifestyle of slow traveling. Mr. Nomad will share their story with us, how they left their safe and well-paid corporate jobs to pursue the lifestyle they are passionate about, traveling the world full-time, live their best life, and all that without breaking the bank. And side note, as you will hear, this slow traveling is not only about sitting on a beach and sipping Piña Coladas. Anyway, this episode is for you if a nomadic lifestyle, when that will be possible again, is something you dream about, but you don't know where to start, or if you're curious to hear about how regular people live alternative lifestyle pursuing their passions. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Mr. Nomad Numbers. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing very good. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to hear about your story. You are currently in Taiwan, is that correct?
Yes, we're in Taipei right now, Taiwan.
Okay, you're in Taipei with Mrs. Nomad Numbers, but she could not join. Anyway, you are a couple, you're French, and she's American, and you guys have retired from the workforce in 2018, and you've been slow traveling ever since. Can you guide us a little bit through what is slow traveling and maybe a little bit more background here?
Yeah, so let's start with some background. So as you said, I'm French and Mrs. Nomad Numbers is American.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in France. 2008, I moved to the United States, moved to California for work. And had my career there. I have a pretty good career in the US, working as a software engineer for most of the past 10 years that I stayed there. And about 4 years ago, I've met Mrs. Nomad Numbers, which was also working in tech in California, in San Francisco, to be very specific. Yeah, so we've met. And then as we started dating, we are both really excited about exploration in general. And we both had the travel bug. So we just had a conversation at some point. I think we went on a hike one day and I was asking her, hey, what do you think about taking a year off and just go travel the world together? And she was pretty excited about it, but she has a lot of concern about, can we do it? Cannot we do it? And then after a few research, we decided that actually we could do that indefinitely. And that's why we were able to retire from our regular work in 2018, and now we've since been slow traveling the world. Yeah, it has been 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then what slow travel means for us is like, we didn't want it to, now that we have a way to travel pretty much for many years or indefinitely if we would like to, we want it to be sustainable. So the major difference between regular travel, which was the way we used to travel before, like, the 1 to 2 weeks vacation, to slow travel is actually, it's like living like pretty similar life that the life you will be doing when you will be living in low location, but doing it as you move every 4 to 6 weeks. So in that sense, we do check sites and we do go hiking and all of that. We do also do grocery shoppings and laundry and all of the regular chores. So yeah, it's having that travel lifestyle, which is sustainable. And the way we achieve this is by slowing down our travel.
Mm-hmm. And do you still work? I mean, you mentioned you're financially independent. We will come back to the how and etc. A bit later on. But what do you do now? You really just travel and go to hikes and enjoy the visits and the local food scenes, or what do you do?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. A lot of people will usually think that travel is like sitting by the beach and drinking Piña Coladas and not doing anything. That would have been very boring for us. I'm kind of a A-type person, so I like to do things. And, when I was in my busy careers, I was doing a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what we are doing now is like we are splitting our time 50-50. So 50% of the time we'll be focusing on the travel aspect that we like, exploring and hanging out with locals or expats that we meet. But then the other 50% will be working on our passion projects. And so for me, it might be the blog or some of the things that I'm excited about right now. For Mrs. Right now, she's taking a lot of Mandarin class since we're in Taiwan. And last year, she was taking nutrition class. She wanted to become a nutrition coach. Mm-hmm. So that was taking a lot of her time. So yeah, it's basically the things we really care about. So now we have the ability to focus on that.
Yeah, you have the time and the resources. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And then maybe let's roll back a little bit to your career in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco area, because you decide, you go on this trip with your wife, and you say, hey, why don't we travel for 1 year? Okay, that's fine. I think people can start to think and read books or whatever podcast. But then, financially, I think how do you do that in such a short time? How do you achieve this?
Yeah. I went pretty fast on that. So what happened was, I think we started a conversation about, let's do it 1 year. And then she knew that I think she has something in mind, like, travel for a year from her experience in the US, going to be like $100,000, to enjoy travel. And I knew from going to France, then you probably will need less than that. I think I grew up in my parents were like middle class jobs, so nothing fancy, and our summer were fun, but we didn't splurge as much. So I was asking, hey, we should be able to do it for 2 to 3 years. And then we started digging into that, and we realized, cost of travel, and we realized that it was not as expensive as she thought, and much closer than what I thought. As you know, some people can travel for a year. Like the backpacker budget will be like 15 to 20,000 USD. Mm-hmm. So far from those 100,000. But then we realized that people were doing it indefinitely. So that's why we're like, how is that possible that some people can just travel the world indefinitely? So that led us to two paths. There is digital nomadism. Those people that are like basically going to low cost of countries, and having a job that can be done from anywhere. Mm-hmm. So then they can get much more value for their money, right? They can probably just work half of the year, or if they work the entire year, they will save much more than being back to their country. Yeah. Or the other path was the financial freedom route. So we ran into the financial independence, which are early movement. And that's the one that excited us the most, because there is no stress related to, if you're a digital nomad, you still have to work, and it's, you go in different countries, and there is a lot of risk or stress related to that. The financial route was much more, you save your money, then you invest it properly, and then you can just basically make the money works for you instead of having to work for your money. So we stumbled into people like Mr. Money Mustache, which is very big in the United States, the Mad Scientist, and he has also a lot of podcasts where we interview people. And also people like Go Curry Cracker or Millionaire Revolution that were more having a similar lifestyle than us, like that they reached financial independence, but then they wanted to travel. Yeah. So those were the people that was like, we can also do that and travel at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how we came up to that conclusion.
Okay, so you try to reach the financial independence, retire early. So the FIRE movement, this has been discussed previously on the podcast, so I'll not dig into that. But then which route did you choose? Did you go for the invest in index fund and chill, or and let it grow, or some real estate? What has been your strategy here, just in brief?
Yeah, in brief, yeah. So it was initially financial market by accident, and I can dig into that if you want the details, but financial market by accident. Then we realized, we were basically only picking up stocks, so we have to diversify all of that to low-cost index funds, and then we're starting to diversifying by putting some of that into real estate. But I think the real estate portion right now is still a smaller chunk of our portfolio, and we're trying to grow it a little bit to get the diversification across assets.
Yeah. I think you go more into details in an episode of Financial Independence Europe, so I'll not dig into that now. But I think you being in the Silicon Valley, your salary were quite good, and you kept your expenses low anyway all along. So it's already part of your lifestyle anyway to not splurge. Mm-hmm. And so which helped you to save as much and then invest. So that's also accelerated your path. One question I had here is, just imagine some listeners in Europe were like, this is all great, and I'm Yeah, I'm excited about this slow traveling or maybe even trying digital nomading, which is slightly different as we explained. But okay, I live in, I don't know, in Germany, in France, in Norway, in England. I don't make such big money. So how, I mean, I cannot have the same short path to fire. Do you have any advice or any tips on that? How they can achieve it with lower salaries, with lower disposable income?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I would like to start by saying that yes, you can save more in the US because the salary in absolute value is higher. The cost of living is also much higher. So you have to be really careful and really focus of what matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think from us, from the get-go, we are not very excited about buying stuff. We never bought a car and anything expensive. So that was it. Let us save at least 50% from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think that if you're in Europe, it's also focusing of what you want to get out of your life. If you dream of travel, you don't have to go, we took basically the extreme approach from going from working to stop working and now to just retiring early. So now we can just do all of that without having to work if we want. I think in retrospect, there can be a middle ground that might be much more easily accessible from people in Europe, which would be you can maybe have a part-time job or having some sort of seasonal job in a case when you can work part of the time either in your country or outside and then take the other half of that year to travel or to do what you are excited about. We actually have we've met people through our blog that are from Canada and that have taken that approach. So they are making way lower salary that we were used to make,
Mm-hmm.
but they are doing 6 months of work in Quebec, any type of work, and then use that money, save that, and then go to countries when they can use that money to have much more value of that money. So they can go to a lower cost of countries or making shorter trip is more expensive countries. So yeah, I think it's really what you want to value in your life and then giving you the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, so okay, so it's possible at a lower scale, and then okay, you will see maybe with time, and then while your investment grows, then maybe you can afford, if that's something that you enjoy, then maybe a more full-time slow travel. Okay, very good. Okay,
Yeah.
and then Mr. Nomad, let's go back to the traveling bit. So you've been traveling for 2 years now, and now you're in Taiwan. Where have you been? Which places have you been living in?
Yes, so we've been. So Taiwan is a bit of an exception. I'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
So we started in Canada. So we spent 3 months in Canada in the summer of 2018. One of the things we want to do is also to spend time with family now that we have the flexibility to be anywhere and we have more time.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a month with my family in Canada in summer 2018. Then went to Mexico for 4 months. 2019 we started with Aruba. Spent time with Mrs. Nomad in California the first part of the year, and then went to Europe for the summer. So we did France, Spain, Portugal, and Montenegro in Europe. So that brought us to fall 2019. And then we went to Southeast Asia, which actually was the first time I've ever been to Southeast Asia in my life.
Oh, cool.
I've been to Japan, but that was Asia. So yeah, so we've been to Thailand for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to Malaysia for about 2 months. And then we went to Vietnam for a month, Indonesia for a month, and we are going to extend that, but then the pandemic hit. So we came to Taiwan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then yeah, but I like it because you really take your time. You said 3 months in Thailand, for example, so you really have time to immerse yourself in the culture, really get into the local lifestyle. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one of the things we like, and that's kind of part of that slow travel definition. Is like we really want ultimately to be like locals. So we like to, we don't go on all inclusive resort, like just being totally isolated for everything.
Mm-hmm.
We just
Yeah.
use Airbnbs. Ideally we love Airbnbs that people are used to live in, that they rent instead of like that investment property which has kind of a cold feel to it. So that's actually the apartment that we are living right now in Taiwan. Is like somebody has been living there, so it's super functional, it's super well designed. So we do that, and then we do in Thailand, for instance, we spend time learning about Buddhism and the lifestyle part of Buddhism, not so much the religion, but then get into meditation. So a wonderful experience there, working with monks. We also went to the beach, Koh Lanta. We stayed a full month on the beach, which has a nice settings. In Malaysia, the food was so good in Penang in particular. So we did cooking classes, learn about how the food was made. So yeah, every time we go somewhere, the experience is totally new. So we always get that dopamine hit. It's like, oh, it's like a kids in a new school or a new playground. Everything is new. You want to try, whether it's the food, whether it's the site, whether it's the activities or the people you've met. So we never get bored in a way. It's kind of the easy way of not getting into boredom. You always move. If you move every 4 to 6 weeks, you will, you will get excited again.
Okay. And how is so you mentioned Taiwan, and you told me as well that okay, you get into a special visa. I mean, it's with all this traveling, does it involve complicated paperwork, or is Taiwan a bit special?
Yeah, so we came to Taiwan because that was the place which has at the time the lower number of cases. And as of August, they only have 480 cases and only 7 people died. So this is probably one of the safest developed country that are probably still standing against the virus. So because we love it so much there, when we arrived, they give us a 3-month visa. That turned out into a 6-month visa. But as our visa going to run out, we are looking into options. So yeah, we find that Taiwanese employment gold visa, which we managed to apply, that give us a 3-year residency now. So we're going to make Taiwan a temporary home until the pandemic gets better. So that will be, so then we can enjoy the island here and don't worry too much about the stress of traveling.
Yeah, okay, I understand. And then with regards to the other trips, so like, I don't know, Europe, okay, for you it's not a problem to travel, but like in Southeast Asia, is there a limit in time that people can stay in a country, especially since you're doing slow travel? Can you stay indefinitely, or is there a 3 months time limit or something?
Yeah, so every time we go somewhere, we have to check on visas. So yeah, so Thailand, for instance, it's a 1 month visa on arrival. You can always extend. So I think we were able to extend from 1 month to countries like Mexico. You give you 6 months on arrival, so that's much more flexible. Taiwan, I mentioned, was 3 months. You can extend to 6 months. So we always look at the visa situation, and then we base our trip on that. You can potentially extend. I think digital nomads like to do visa run very easily because usually digital nomads will just stay in those countries on tourist visa. Some of them might have working visa, but a lot of them, the one I've met, were like on tourist visa, and they will just take a trip during the day to leave the country and come back. But a lot of countries are starting to flag those people, and a few people have been blacklisted to enter this country once because they abuse the system. So that's a way, but we haven't done that. We don't really feel comfortable about that. And since we can go anywhere, we don't mind just going to the next place and coming back later.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, the pandemic hit, but what were otherwise your plans for the next countries?
So we were supposed to be, so in March, we were supposed to have my family to, again, spend time with my family again. So we decided to meet with them in Japan for a full month. And we booked place in Tokyo and Kyoto because they've never been to Japan. And then we are going to go to Europe. So after that, we are going to go to Italy, Poland with Krakow, and then doing a short trip back to the US to see my wife's parents. Again, that's part of that. Let's spend a month with our respective family each year.
Yeah.
And then going back to Europe with, I think we had planned to Greece in the fall. And after that, we're thinking going back to Southeast Asia because I've never been and there is so many places to explore. So that was the extent of our planning for 2020.
Okay. Well, it sounds exciting. It's too bad of the pandemic. I was myself planning to go to US, but okay, it's canceled as well. And just one question here on the trips. Okay, you're traveling, but is there a particular place that you really enjoyed, or that you would say, "Oh, guys, you need to go there"? For the listeners, you say, if you have one choice, go to this place. We really loved it so much.
So it's really based on taste, but I will say Thailand has been, and especially Chiang Mai, like all of the Buddhism. I was never exposed to Buddhism, and for me, I only saw Buddhism as a religion. So getting exposed from it from the lifestyle perspective, and which led into meditation, and we took a meditation retreat that was totally free and offered by the monks. That was really life-changing because to that date, I've now still practice meditation every day. And it's a really good way to also slow down. And for me, meditation is like, people will go to the gym as kind of the medication for their body to stay healthy. Meditation for me, it's like the medication for the mind. as more as it's important to stay healthy and eat a proper diet, I think people should think about meditation as also keeping care of their mind. So then, a lot of people are anxious or like feeling depression or all of those mind-related disease. So that was really life-changing for that. As far as place, if you are a slow travel and you want to a place you want to stay longer, I really liked Montreal, which was the first place we've been to in our trip because it was really affordable, very European style. People were super friendly, and we went there during the summer. So there was all of the festival and all of that. I think the summer in Montreal was also
Okay, and Montreal is acceptable. I mean, acceptable. Montreal is affordable for traveling for long periods. You think? I mean, it's a more like Thailand, Southeast Asia. It's a bit viewed as cheaper, more affordable than like a US or a European city.
Yeah, so actually the funny thing was it cost us. Montreal was much cheaper than the other side of Canada, like Vancouver and the West Coast.
Okay.
It was still cheaper than Mexico when we spent time in Mexico and Mexico City. Yeah, because I think Mexico City was expensive. So yeah, for us that was cheaper. It was more expensive than Chiang Mai for sure. But yeah, I think we could live in Montreal for not that much more than living in the cheapest country in Southeast Asia. To give you an idea, we spend about 25,000. If we'll have put our budget on a year for what we spend in Montreal, it will have been 25,000 when we spend about 25,000 in Mexico. But then in comparison, living in Chiang Mai would have been only 15,000 or 16,000 USD per year. So a bit more expensive, but still not as expensive as other places. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Then we touched upon it a bit earlier, and it's a bit a boring topic, but I think it needs to be addressed when talking about traveling like this for longer periods. The healthcare and the taxes. So how do you deal with that? And just one thing before we start. So you are French, but you are a US resident then, I guess.
Yes, because I've moved in the US in 2008. Yeah, all of my everything is based in the US for me now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can talk about the tax. They will be very tax specific. So is that something? Basically, the bottom line is that we set up our life to not have to pay tax in the US, at least on the federal level, because we are using some of the tax cuts, and the way our income is coming through is not really taxed. We do still pay tax in the states that we're in, but there is way for us now, since we don't live in the US, we could potentially move to a different state if we really want to reduce our tax. But yeah, the tax actually in the US is very based on the type of income that we generate, which is mostly from real estate and stock investment. It's very generous if you don't make too much money. Yeah. So since for US, we don't make that much money, I think it's very beneficial for us. I can get into more details if you have specific questions, but that's kind of the situation on the tax. So it's much better than it was before because we generate less. As for the healthcare, the healthcare in the US is very, very expensive compared to Europe. So what we had to do was to buy expat health insurance. So we use IMG for our first 2 years. IMG Global provide expat insurance. It's about 3,000 USD for the two of us. So we're in our 30s, and it's a very high deductible. So it was really just to have the catastrophic coverage. I think the deductible is like $10,000 between the two of us. So we'll have to, if both of us got in trouble, we will have to spend more than $10,000 before the insurance can start to pay anything back. But from a US mindset, 10,000, if you go to the ER, you can easily get to that. So it's not too bad. It's more catastrophic. And then because the cost of healthcare anywhere else in the world, especially in Southeast Asia or even in Europe, even if you pay out of pocket, it's much cheaper than that. So everything we've been spending money on right now, we didn't really need insurance for it. Go to the dentist cleaning was probably like 20, 25 euros in we did it one in Thailand. We did what in Vietnam. That was about how much we spent. I had to pay for prescription because I have an ear infection when I was in Thailand. And I think it was again the same 20 or 25 euros or USD. Sorry, my prices are in USD. So it's super cheap. And I think here in Taiwan, it's also super cheap. We need to do our cleaning in the coming weeks, and it's really, really cheap. So that's what we do for healthcare. The advantage of now being based in Taiwan is that because we are resident of that country, we are going to be able to tap into national healthcare insurance, which also it's really cheap. I don't have the numbers right now, but I've heard you pay very little, like maybe anywhere from $10 to $50 a month, and then you have very good coverage. So that's what we'll do for now, as long as we stay in Taiwan. But yeah, in general, healthcare as you travel, it's really cheap. And if I don't know if your country, if you can have, you probably have cheaper plan if you want some sort of expat coverage.
Yeah, I don't know because I've never been an expat. And here I live in Europe. I've lived in Norway, France, Luxembourg, and Belgium. And usually we are quite lucky with our healthcare systems. And then you can always, if you really want, you can always add an additional insurance, which is not very expensive in general. So that's good. And then moving on to the long-term view, Mr. Nomad, you're traveling, you have further travel plans after the pandemic, but how long will you keep that lifestyle? Is this something you really want to do indefinitely, or do you plan to settle at some point and maybe even have kids? I don't know.
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think that can be a nice segue into what we've been decided. So we just we started the travel, and in the first year it was all about the travel, and then we did that first year, and then we started taking a step back about the pro and cons of that lifestyle, and then what we really wanted out of our life. So overall, traveling has been something good with us. We rather prefer traveling and having all of those experiences I mentioned, and being at a desk and working for a company and being at the disposal of our boss. And if in the US layoffs are pretty easy, and I've been through one of them, so it's not really fun to even if you are a high performer, the next day to have to leave the company because there is some cuts in budget somewhere, and unfortunately you are the one that had to. So I think we like that freedom. And now we want to really use that to basically live our best life. So travel will be a big component to it, but we also want to spend more time with our parents and family. So as we travel, we want to spend time with them. We are thinking at least 2 months a year with our respective parents, 1 to 2 months per year. So do that. And then, longer term, like 5+ years, we're trying to find a base for us, like a place we really like. So that's why we still need to travel, because we are traveling slowly. So it's hard to hit all of the places we want to check. But Portugal, for instance, was a place we really liked. And I just mentioned Montreal. I think Portugal is another of those places that feel like really feel like home to us. Very affordable as well, very safe, much safer than it was a couple of decades ago. So we're still, and now we are in Taiwan. I really, really like Taiwan. So who knows? Maybe we'll just settle. So it's having a base, but just use that as a base. So we still imagine ourselves still traveling for part of the year and just coming back to that base. And that's also where we hope to have our community. I think one of the challenges of that lifestyle is like as you move around, the people doesn't move as with you, unfortunately. So having a community is also important. And that's why I think we believe that if we have a base, it will be easier. But since we started our second year of travel, we were able to starting meeting like-minded people. So there is a couple we've met, for instance, in Thailand that we kept traveling with, and we've met in Vietnam, and then we share a villa with them in Bali, and now they're trying to get with us in Taiwan. They're also American, but trying to use the same visa we used to come here because they would qualify. Trying to find that community. We will see whether it's easier to find it if we settle down somewhere, or as we keep moving around and we connect with like-minded people, if we can find them as well. And
I like it. It's like you're on a house hunt worldwide, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can just, you can take all of the benefits. You can get the best of all of those places, right? You can choose, for us, it's proximity to nature, and you can decide based on the weather. And you can maybe, like Montreal would be nice for the summer. There can be a base, and then maybe for the winter, because it's very cold in Montreal, maybe you can go to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we have that nice flexibility.
No, I like that. And then you hit a very important point, at least to me. It's building a community. I mean, when I live somewhere, what is nice is that you go to some shops, you go to some places, I don't know where, your sports club, at least for the sedentary people. You go to whatever and you meet the same people, you build relations, you go to church, I don't know what, but you build the connections. And then, at some point, it's nice to have this. I mean, for me to have this familiar faces, but it does not need to be tied to one place. I mean, for example, I have plans for a family home in Belgium, and then I know already the people there. So the community, let's say it's made. So I can be there, and I lived in Paris. For example, if I move there today, I know people there. So I have already built a community beforehand if I want to. So that's kind of cool. You have people everywhere, and of course you need to try to, it's your job to keep the relations and everything. And it's great, but it's an important factor. You were right to mention it. Excellent. And then Mr. Nomad Number, my maybe a last but a very important question. So you enjoy the slow travel, obviously, but is that for everybody?
Yeah, so it's definitely not for everybody. And I think a lot of people think about, they dream about travel.
Yeah, the sexy part.
Because it's like, it's like the sexy part. I'm going to be by the beach and I'm going to do nothing and I'm just going to like drink and whatever, it's very relaxing. But I think at the end we are human, and I think we strive to be productive and to give back or do something like important with our life. So, and that's why I like to, that's why we are really big into that concept of lifestyle design, which is, or life design, I should say, which is just define what you want to do, what you really want to do in your life. And I think for us, and it's really hard because, you have a lot of constraints and limitation that you face every day. For instance, people need to work because they need to have income. But then if you say, oh, if you don't need the income, would you like to work? Or if you want to, who would you like to spend your time with as well? Sometimes people just spend time with whoever they hang out with. They are not trying to identify the type of people they want to spend the time with, or even where do you want to live. People don't have that choice because they need a job, and then the job usually has to, for me, when I moved to California, I did it because of a job. So if people can start to let go of those constraints and limitations, they can start really identifying was something they really want versus what something else wants from them or the society wants for them. Is that makes sense? And that was what prompting us to say, okay, we want to travel because that was our inner belief. We faced those limitations. We realized, oh yeah, we cannot travel long times because we need to have a home or we need to have work. And then we find a way out. We figure things out to be able to do that. And it was not easy. And I'm glad that we were finding all of those people that had done that before, because otherwise we'd probably just done it for a year and come back to our previous life because we could not think it was sustainable. So yeah, people should really think what they really want to do about their life, trying to think about removing all of those limitations and trying to think big. And then from there, they will find ways to get there. It's when people are usually, when I share that with my close friends, they always come up with those limitations, say, oh, but I have kids, or, oh, I need to work into that job. But we've been on our blog, we've been interviewing a lot of people that have alternative lifestyle, and you can see that not of them as a silver spoon or like a trust fund or even work in high-paying job like we did, and they all come up with beautiful stories. So yeah, think about what you want for yourself, and then the rest will follow.
And then I don't do really meditation and all these things, but I do reflection. I reflect, and then, for example, one thing I did. It's a couple of years ago, and it's about work. So in the end, the best work you can do, to me, is the work you would do for free. And, I think maybe it's everywhere in some books, but I came up with that myself just by reflecting. I'm like, but what would I like to do for free? And then basically it's what I'm doing now. The podcast and the blog, I do it on the side of my job, but it's something, if I had all the money in the world, I would still do it, for example.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it's much more, it brings you that fulfillment. And then at the end of the day, even though if you didn't get the money, it probably feels good to, being able to connect your listeners with like people like me, or writing something you've discovered on the blog to share it with the masses. I think I'm similar to you. I totally agree to what you said, Jonathan. It's like whatever brings you joy at the end of the day is like what makes you happy. And if for you, it's like, for me, it's like, We like to share our journey. We want to show people that things are possible and they can design a life they really love.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can only change one person, just one person, by sharing what I've done and spending hours doing that, that would be already a huge achievement. Versus, corporate jobs can be fine. And, I'm fine if people find, their passion in a job. It's really hard. I think 2 or 3/3 of the workforce are not really happy of their job because it's hard to find something fulfilling. But yeah, if you are an entrepreneur type and you can start your business, and if you can do it for free, then even better for you. You can help people and make the world a better place. That's for it. But for us, we try to have much more realistic goals. Try not to change the world, but just to bring a little bit of what we learn along the way. And yeah, doing that works towards helping others. That's
okay. Very excellent. And I'll just close with that. I mean, I read your website, of course, and it's very. I mean, for the people, for listeners who are interested in this lifestyle and or who want to learn more, just to discover what it is. It's very helpful. There's a lot of details on the expenses per city, the comparisons, and then some travel reports. It's quite detailed, and even your backpack details are in there. So it's very detailed. What you take with you, I like it. So go pay a visit for sure. And yeah, Mr. Nomad, before we close, we will go through our quick fire questions, and then we'll go through how people can connect with you. So are you ready for the quick fire questions?
Yeah, sure. Bring them on.
Excellent. So talked a little bit about that, but I'm not sure we've answered it. So what has been your best investment so far?
Yeah, so it's not going to be nothing to do with investing your money, even though that's what led us to that lifestyle. It's more about investing. I think at the beginning it was investing in ourselves, what we wanted to do with our life, which led to then the financial investment. So invest in yourself, be a little bit selfish, stop listening to what people tell you what to do or, what it means to have a career. Just think about what you want, whether it's a family, whether it's like helping other, whatever it is, and start from there. I think we came up to that conclusion in our 30s, so not too late in life. But I think some people don't get there until they really stop, being in the 9 to 5, 9 to 5, and then it's kind of very late for them to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. And then the second question: what is your favorite book or any book that you would recommend to anybody? And it's not necessarily linked to a finance or personal finance.
Yeah, so this is not a finance book. It's called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. It's written by Yuval Noah Harari, and you probably have heard about that book. It's a trilogy. And that book changed my understanding about the human existence. It's going through the major revolution. And at the end, the book go from cognitive agricultural to scientific revolution and all of the change. But at the end, the book asks ourselves not what we want to become, which is what I was mentioning, but just what's the next step? What do we want? I think the question is like that the book ends with like, what do we want to want? Basically, what the next big chapter for human history? What do we want to? Yeah. So I don't know. It's still very abstract to me that I cannot answer that question, but it's interesting to see, where we are going as humans, and it's a really, really good book.
Okay, excellent. And I know it's one of the best sellers of the last years, and it's on my list as well.
Yeah, okay. And then the trilogy that's followed, it's also pretty good. I'm still on the second book, so I have one more to finish, but it's good as well.
Okay, very good. And then the last question, it's always a tricky one. What is the best purchase you've made for under $100 or euros?
So I think I'm going to go with our zero waste kit. So as we travel, we try to have to reduce our impact on the environment, and a lot of countries are using plastics and all of that. So we have basically that zero waste kit, which is made of reusable with a straw and fork and spoon and even some and a cup and collapsible container that we use. And we use that all the time. Even to, when we go hiking and we want to carry our lunch, or when we go out and we want to get some tea or some snacks. So instead of getting all of those bags or plastic containers, we just use that kit. And yeah, it's way less than that price point, but we've been using so many times, and I think it has been one of our best investments since we started that travel, for sure.
Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, excellent. Seems very practical. I like that because it's also a purchase you can make once or twice, and that's it.
Yeah, and then we keep reusing that, and so that's trying to be eco-friendly as much as we can, especially as we travel.
Yeah, perfect. And Mr. Nomad Numbers, thank you for sharing all this info and details. But of course, many listeners will want to find out more. Where can they find you, actually?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go to our blog, which is at nomadnumbers.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can start from there and get into our newsletter if you want to get our updates once a week.
Okay, well, I want to thank you again so much for sharing your story here on the podcast. And it was very inspirational. It was very practical as well. I mean, you really detailed quite well your journey. And I think it will. I think many of the listeners will enjoy listening to this. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, and thank you so much for what you are doing with your podcast. Of course, to have me sharing our stories, and we'll be looking forward listening more of your podcast in the weeks and months to come.
Okay, fantastic. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it, and maybe you got inspired as well. If slow traveling, digital nomading is a bit something you're after, or that you're simply curious about. And now, before we head off, let's go through the key takeaways of today. Number 1, traveling for long periods of time may not be as expensive as you may think, and even living in some cities may be cheaper than you thought at first. Think of the example of Mexico City versus Montreal, for example. Number 2, there's a difference with digital nomadism. If you think about the episode with Sharon that we released before the summer, that was more about digital nomadism. Working remotely and living in a cheaper country so you can save good amounts of money and then invest and do whatever you want with that. In the case of Mr. and Mrs. Nomad Numbers, they chose the financial freedom route or the FIRE route. So FIRE stands for Financial Independent Retire Early. In their case, they do not have to work, it's less stressful, and they can focus fully on their passion project. Number 3, their strategy to financial independence, it was to keep expenses low, focusing on buying what matters to them, investing in the stock markets, and as well later on into real estate. Number 4, what happens if you don't have such a high income as they had? Well, what you can do if you're interested in that lifestyle is to take part-time jobs or seasonal jobs, so you can work some month in your country, save up some money, and then go for the rest of the year to a lower-cost country or city to do whatever you want. It's all about what you value in your life and taking the opportunities. And last but not least, is slow travel for everyone? Well, in the case of Mr. and Mrs. Nomad Numbers, slow travel was the result of a process. You will need to let go of the constraints and limitations, and you will need to be intentional about how you want to live. You will need to figure out what you want, how you want to live, and for inspiration, well, what better place than their website to get started? So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.